Do you remember me, rancher? The Apache woman claimed to be your girlfriend and now she wants to. The rancher had always been a man of routine. Every morning he woke before the sun, the cool air of the desert brushing against his weathered face as he stepped out onto the wooden porch of his small ranch house. The land stretched out for miles, dotted with cactus, sagebrush, and dusty trails that led to distant hills. The cattle were already lowing softly, expecting their breakfast, and the horses shifted impatiently in their stalls. For years, this routine had been his life, solitary, calm, and predictable. He liked it that way. Life on the ranch was honest work, and he had found peace in the rhythm of feeding animals, mending fences, and tending to the land. But on this particular morning, something unusual broke the quiet. A figure appeared on the horizon, walking along the dirt road that led to his property. At first he thought it might be a traveler or perhaps a delivery of supplies. The figure moved with a confident, purposeful gait, unlike a casual wanderer. As the distance closed, he noticed that it was a woman. Her presence immediately drew his attention. She wore a wide-brimmed hat, shading her face from the bright sun, and a long skirt that swayed with each step. There was something familiar in the way she carried herself, something that tugged at a memory he had long buried. He put down the bucket of feed he had been carrying and squinted. The woman stopped at the edge of his property, her eyes scanning the land before settling on him. She lifted her hand in a small, almost hesitant wave. For a moment the rancher froze, unsure what to do. It had been years since anyone from his past had come to this place. The solitude he cherished suddenly felt fragile, as if it could be disrupted by a single encounter. As she approached, the air seemed to change. There was an energy around her, a sense of purpose mixed with a quiet intensity. When she finally reached the porch, she took off her hat, revealing dark, expressive eyes that held a mixture of determination and something softer, perhaps hope, or perhaps longing. "Do you remember me?" she asked, her voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of urgency. The rancher blinked, searching his memory. The face seemed vaguely familiar, yet he couldn't immediately place it. I don't think so," he said carefully, though his heart began to beat faster. She smiled faintly, almost as if she had expected his hesitation.
"I suppose it has been a long time. You might not remember me."
"But I was someone you knew once, someone who cared for you." A memory sparked, distant and blurry, like an old photograph faded by time. He remembered a brief summer years ago, traveling through the outskirts of a nearby reservation. There had been a woman, vibrant and full of life, who had shared meals with him, laughed at his jokes, and left a mark he hadn't fully realized until now. Could it be her? He started, then stopped. Words felt inadequate. He was cautious, naturally reserved, and the sudden reappearance of someone from his past stirred emotions he hadn't touched in years. "I'm sorry. It's been a long time."
She nodded, understanding. "I know."
"But I needed to see you. I needed to find you." Her voice had a quiet intensity now, and he felt the weight of something unspoken. The rancher gestured toward the porch steps.
"Well, come in then. It's hot out there, and we can talk." As they settled on the porch, the woman introduced herself properly.
"I am Maya," she said, her tone steady. "You might remember me from years ago. We met briefly, and, well, I think I've never really forgotten you." The rancher studied her face carefully. Her features were striking, with high cheekbones and a determined gaze. There was an unmistakable strength in her, a resilience born from years of navigating challenges that he could only imagine. And yet beneath that strength there was a vulnerability he could sense, a quiet plea for understanding. "I remember someone," he admitted slowly. "A summer a long time ago. We spent a few days together near the reservation. Is that you?" Her eyes softened. "Yes, that was me. And I've been trying to find you ever since." The rancher leaned back in his chair, feeling a mixture of surprise and unease. It was one thing to remember the past, it was another to have it arrive on your doorstep, fully formed, demanding attention. He had built his life here carefully, layer by layer, And now this unexpected chapter threatened to disrupt everything he had worked for. Maya looked around the ranch, her eyes taking in the fields, the animals, and the rugged beauty of the landscape. "You've done well here," she said. "It's beautiful." "Thank you," he replied, his voice quiet. "It's simple, but it's mine."
I like it this way. For a moment, silence fell between them.
The wind rustled through the sagebrush, and a hawk circled in the distance. Then Maya spoke again, her tone shifting. "I didn't come here just to visit old memories. I need your help." The rancher's brow furrowed. "My help? With what?" She hesitated, then said, "It's complicated. It's dangerous." And I didn't know who else to turn to. He studied her carefully, noting the seriousness in her expression. She wasn't here for a casual reunion or to rekindle old romance. Something urgent had brought her to his ranch, something that required trust, courage, and perhaps more than he was willing to give. "Sit down," he said finally, gesturing to the wooden bench beside him. "Tell me everything." Her eyes fixed on the horizon as if drawing strength from the open land. "Years ago, I left the reservation because I needed to find my own path. But in doing so, I got involved with people I shouldn't have. People who have followed me who are dangerous, and I don't have anyone else I can turn to."
The rancher listened silently, the weight of her words sinking in.
Life on the ranch had been predictable, quiet, and safe. Now suddenly, it felt as if a storm had arrived on the horizon, and he was at the center of it.
"I know this is a lot," Maya continued. "I didn't come to drag you into my problems.
But I remember you as someone who cared, someone who could see me as I am. I don't know what else to do." He ran a hand through his hair, feeling the heat of the sun and the heat of the moment collide. The logical part of him urged caution. The solitary life he had built was precious, and yet the memory of her laughter, her warmth, the connection they had shared, pulled at him in ways he couldn't ignore. He said finally, his voice firm but calm.
"You're here now. We'll figure it out."
"But you need to tell me everything. I need to understand what I'm stepping into." Maya nodded, relief softening her features. She began recounting her story, from the moment she left the reservation to the challenges she faced along the way. She spoke of people who had betrayed her, situations that had forced her to run, and the fear that had been a constant companion. And through it all, she spoke with honesty and clarity, painting a picture of a life that had been far from easy, yet filled with courage and determination. As she spoke, the rancher felt a shift inside him. The past and present collided, and he realized that this woman, whom he had only briefly known, had become someone he could not turn away from. Her presence was a challenge to his solitude, a test of his character, and perhaps a chance to reconnect with a part of himself he had long ignored. Hours passed as they talked. The sun moved across the sky, casting long shadows over the fields. The rancher felt a mix of emotions: curiosity, concern, and an unexpected warmth. Maya's story was compelling, her need genuine, and yet there was a cautionary undertone he could not ignore. Whatever lay ahead, it would not be easy, and it would not be safe. By the time the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, the rancher had made a decision. He would help her. He would listen, protect, and face whatever challenges came with her presence. It was a choice that carried risk, but also the possibility of something profound: a reconnection, a renewal, and perhaps a new chapter in his carefully ordered life. Maya looked at him, gratitude and a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Thank you," she said softly. "I knew I could find you." He nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. The ranch, the land, the cattle, and the quiet life he had cherished were still his. But now a new story was beginning, one that would test him, challenge him, and perhaps change him forever. As darkness settled over the desert and the stars began to shine, the rancher and Maya sat together on the porch, two lives intertwined by memory, circumstance, and the quiet promise of what was yet to come. The next morning the rancher woke before dawn as he always did, but there was a tension in the air he could not ignore. The past had a way of arriving unannounced, and now it sat at his kitchen table, sipping coffee and watching the morning light creep across the fields. Maya was already awake, her eyes fixed on the horizon, and when she turned to look at him, there was an intensity in her gaze that made him feel both cautious and curious. "Sleep well?" he asked, trying to keep his tone casual. "For the most part," she said, "but my mind has been restless. There's much to explain, and I don't want to leave anything out." He nodded, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "I want to understand everything." "Start from the beginning." Maya took a deep breath and began. She spoke carefully, her voice steady but carrying a subtle urgency. She told him about the years since they last saw each other, how she had tried to make a life on her own, the challenges she faced, and the people she had encountered along the way. It was a story of courage and perseverance, but also of constant vigilance, a life lived cautiously and always on the move. "I didn't come here for help lightly," she said. "I thought I could handle it myself, but the situation has grown beyond my control. And I remembered you. I remembered the kindness you showed, the way you treated me like a person who mattered. I trusted that you might understand." The rancher listened, feeling a mixture of admiration and concern. He could see that she had endured far more than she let on, and yet there was no bitterness in her words, only honesty. There was something in the way she spoke that demanded respect. "I don't know if I can help," he said slowly. "I live a simple life here. I don't deal with complicated problems." Maya shook her head. "I understand that. I wouldn't ask if it weren't necessary. But I think you might be the only person I can turn to." The rancher leaned back in his chair, staring out over the fields. The sun was rising higher, warming the land, but inside him he felt a chill. He was a man used to control, used to predictability, and now the past had arrived at his doorstep demanding action. "All right," he said finally. "Tell me everything and we'll see what can be done." "No promises, but I'll listen." Maya nodded, relief softening her features. She took a sip of her coffee and began again, this time with more detail. She spoke of people who had once been friends but had turned against her, of opportunities that had seemed safe but had led to difficult situations, and of the fear that had followed her for years. Her story was full of small, tense moments, escapes, narrow misses, and the constant awareness that she could not let her guard down. As she spoke, the rancher realized that the danger she hinted at was not imaginary. It was real, but it was also subtle, the kind of danger that could creep into life quietly if one was not careful. And yet, she spoke with a calm determination, as if she had faced it every day and had learned to live with the uncertainty. "I need to go somewhere safe for a while," she said finally. "Somewhere I can think, plan, and figure out the next steps. And I hoped maybe you could let me stay here, at least temporarily." The rancher studied her carefully. His life was simple, yes, but it was also orderly. Allowing someone into that order, especially someone with such an unpredictable past, was not a small decision.
But there was a sincerity in her eyes, a sense of trust that made him reconsider.
"All right," he said finally. "You can stay. But I need to know everything, and we need to be careful. This is my home, and I protect it. If you're going to be here, I need to trust you, and you need to trust me."
I understand. Thank you.
Over the next few days, life on the ranch adjusted to the presence of another person. Maya helped with chores, learning quickly how to feed the animals, mend fences, and care for the land. She moved with a quiet efficiency that impressed the rancher, and in the evenings, they would sit together on the porch talking about everything and nothing, the desert sky stretching endlessly above them. Yet beneath the calm surface there was a tension that neither could ignore. Maya's situation was not simple, and the rancher knew that helping her could bring complications he had never faced before. And still there was a bond growing between them, fragile but undeniable, a connection born from shared history, mutual respect, and the quiet understanding that life was unpredictable. And sometimes, courage meant stepping into the unknown. One afternoon, as the sun hung high and the heat shimmered across the fields, Maya spoke again about the people who had caused her troubles. She described them carefully, avoiding unnecessary details, but the implication was clear. There were people who were not to be trusted, whose intentions were not good, and whose presence could bring problems.
I don't want to cause you trouble, she said.
But I can't go back. I can't face it alone. And I thought, maybe you could help me figure out a way to keep safe, at least until I can find my own path. The rancher nodded, feeling a mixture of apprehension and determination. He had faced challenges before, yes, but nothing quite like this. And yet, he could not turn her away, not when she had come to him honestly, without pretense or manipulation. There was a sense of responsibility that settled over him, a protective instinct he had not felt in years. Together they began to plan. They walked the land discussing ways to make her presence discreet, ways to avoid attention while she stayed on the ranch. The rancher shared his knowledge of the terrain, pointing out paths, hidden spots, and places where they could move quietly if necessary. Maya listened carefully, absorbing every detail, and the two of them worked together in a rhythm that felt both natural and urgent. As the days passed, the rancher learned more about Maya, not just her past, but her character. She was resourceful, intelligent, and resilient. Someone who had survived difficult circumstances without losing her sense of self. And he began to see her not just as a person from his past, but as someone who could be a companion, an ally, and perhaps even a friend he could trust completely. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned shades of orange and purple, Laya spoke of her fears. "I don't know how long I'll be safe," she said quietly. "I don't know what might happen if the wrong people find me. But being here, it feels like I have a chance to breathe, to think, to plan. I can't thank you enough for that." The rancher nodded, feeling a sense of responsibility he had not felt in years. "You're welcome. We'll figure it out together. But you need to know, this won't be easy. There will be challenges, and we'll have to be smart, careful, and patient." Maya smiled, a small, genuine smile that warmed him in a way he hadn't expected. "I can do that. I trust you." And in that moment, the rancher realized that trust was a powerful thing. It could bring people together, create bonds, and even provide strength in the face of uncertainty. He felt a quiet determination settle over him. He would protect this woman, help her find safety, and face whatever challenges came, no matter how difficult. As night fell over the ranch, the desert stars beginning to twinkle overhead, they sat together on the porch, speaking in low tones, planning and sharing memories. The past had returned to the rancher's life, unexpected and intense, but it also brought a sense of purpose, connection, and the knowledge that courage often meant stepping beyond the familiar. Maya's presence reminded him that life was not always predictable, that the people who entered our lives could change them in ways we did not anticipate. And though he had always valued his solitude, he now saw that connection, trust, and shared purpose could be just as important as quiet and routine. The nights passed, each one filled with conversation, planning, and quiet reflection. The rancher and Maya learned to work together, to anticipate challenges, and to respect the limits of the land and the dangers that could lurk nearby. And slowly, as the desert days rolled into one another, a sense of partnership began to form. A bond built on trust, mutual respect, and the shared understanding that life, though unpredictable, was worth facing together. By the time the week ended, the rancher knew that this was only the beginning. Maya's situation was far from resolved and the path ahead was uncertain. But he also knew that they were ready to face it together, with determination, care, and the quiet courage that came from knowing that, sometimes, the past could bring both challenge and opportunity. And so, as dawn broke once more over the desert, the rancher and Maya stood together, ready to face whatever the next day might bring, knowing that trust, resilience, and shared purpose could carry them through even the most uncertain moments. The days that followed were full of careful planning and quiet preparation. The rancher and Maya had settled into a rhythm, each learning to anticipate the other's needs. They rose early, tended to the animals, repaired fences, and mapped out the surrounding land. The ranch was sprawling, with hidden valleys, small canyons, and thick patches of sagebrush that could provide cover if anyone approached unexpectedly. The rancher had always known these lands well, but now he viewed them differently, seeing them as a refuge, a place to protect someone he cared about. Maya moved with purpose, absorbing every lesson the rancher shared about the land and the strategies they could use to stay safe. She learned to notice the subtle signs of movement in the distance, the shift of wind through the trees, and the sounds of the cattle that could indicate something unusual. It was a kind of vigilance the rancher had cultivated over decades, and he was surprised by how quickly she adapted. "I've lived on the move for years," she said one morning as they walked along a narrow trail through the hills. "I know how to be cautious, how to read the land. But being here, it feels different. Safer." The rancher nodded.
"That's the idea. This land is ours."
"We know it, and knowing it gives us an advantage. But safety doesn't mean being careless. We have to be ready for anything." Their conversations often drifted to lighter subjects as well. Stories of childhood, memories of people they had known, and dreams they had once held. These moments of calm were precious, and the rancher found himself enjoying them more than he had expected. There was a warmth in Maya's presence that he hadn't realized he had missed. But the calm could not last forever. One afternoon, while they were inspecting a remote fence line, Maya paused suddenly. She raised a hand, signaling the rancher to stop. His eyes scanned the horizon, but everything seemed normal. "What is it?" he asked quietly.
"There's someone out there," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not sure who, but I felt it."
Someone is watching. The rancher's heart tightened. He had taught himself to trust his instincts over the years, and he knew the signs of danger, even subtle ones.
He nodded slowly. "All right."
"Let's move carefully." They retraced their steps, keeping low and using the terrain for cover. The rancher noted the tracks in the dust, small impressions that suggested a single person had passed through recently. Maya followed his lead, moving silently, her eyes sharp and alert. Back at the ranch, they secured the property more thoroughly. The rancher checked all the gates and doors, while Maya helped him set up simple but effective systems to detect any unwanted visitors. They worked together with a quiet intensity, each understanding the importance of the other's skills and knowledge. As evening fell, the rancher decided it was time to speak openly about the situation. "Maya," he said, sitting across from her at the kitchen table, "I need to know everything. Who is after you? Why? And what could happen if they find you?" Maya took a deep breath. "It's complicated. There are people who have tried to control aspects of my life. Business, debts, old grudges. Most of it is nothing dangerous if avoided carefully. But there are a few who, well, they don't give up. I've been careful, but now I think they've tracked me here." The rancher listened intently. He had faced challenges before, but this was different. The threat was not immediate, not violent in the traditional sense, but it was persistent and could grow if left unchecked. It required vigilance, strategy, and a calm mind. "We'll handle it," he said firmly. "We'll be cautious and we'll stay ahead, but we need to be prepared for any situation. This land gives us an advantage, but only if we use it wisely."
Maya nodded.
"I trust you. I know I can rely on you." Over the next few days, they implemented plans to secure the ranch. They created hidden pathways for quick movement, identified vantage points to watch the surroundings, and practiced signals to communicate silently. It was a kind of preparation the rancher had never thought he would need in his quiet life, but it gave him a sense of purpose and focus. One morning, as the sun rose over the distant hills, Maya spotted something unusual, a shadow moving across the far field. She signaled the rancher, who immediately grabbed his binoculars. Through the lenses, he could see a figure walking slowly, stopping to observe the ranch before continuing. "Someone is scouting us," he said, his voice low but steady. "We need to be careful. They might not know exactly who we are, but they're testing the land." Maya's heart pounded, but she stayed calm. "What should we do?" We watch. We don't approach. Let's see how they move, what they're looking for. Patience is our ally. They spend hours observing from a hidden spot in the hills, tracking the figure as it moved cautiously across the fields. The rancher noted the person's patterns, the areas of interest, and the possible intentions. Maya offered her own insights, suggesting alternate routes or timing adjustments. Together, they pieced together a picture of the visitor's behavior, preparing themselves for the next step. As evening approached, the rancher decided to confront the situation in a careful way. "We can't let them wander freely," he said. "But we don't know if they're dangerous yet. I'll go slowly, make contact, and gauge their intentions. You stay hidden. We need to know what we're dealing with before taking any action."
Maya nodded, though her nerves were tight. "I understand."
Be careful. The rancher approached the figure slowly, keeping to the shadows and using the land as cover.
As he got closer, he realized it was a young man, perhaps in his 20s, carrying a notebook and observing the ranch quietly. There was no immediate threat, but the presence was concerning.
"Hello," the rancher called out, his voice calm but firm. The young man looked startled, dropping the notebook slightly.
I'm sorry, he said quickly. I didn't mean to intrude.
I'm new here.
I'm trying to map the area for work. I didn't know anyone lived here. The rancher studied him carefully, noting his nervousness and hesitation. "All right," he said slowly. "You need to be careful. This is private property. But if you're honest and respectful, there's no need for trouble. Just make sure you respect the boundaries." The young man nodded vigorously. "I understand."
"I'll leave now. Thank you."
The rancher returned to the ranch, feeling both relief and lingering tension. Maya met him at the porch, her eyes wide. "Was it?" "No immediate danger," he said. "But we have to stay alert. People come and go. Not everyone has good intentions. We need to continue being careful." The days passed with a mixture of calm and tension. They worked together, watched the land, and prepared for any unexpected events. The rancher found himself admiring Maya's courage and determination, while Maya relied on his knowledge and steady presence to guide them. Each day strengthened their bond, not just as allies, but as people who understood the importance of trust, patience, and shared purpose. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned soft shades of pink and orange, Maya spoke quietly. "I've never had a place where I felt truly safe," she said. "Not really, but here, with you, on this land, I feel like I have a chance."
The rancher nodded. Safety isn't guaranteed, but being prepared helps.
And having someone to rely on makes a difference. We'll face whatever comes together.
She smiled, a small but genuine expression. "Thank you."
For believing in me, for trusting me. He felt a quiet warmth in his chest.
We trust each other. That's what matters.
The night fell, and the stars began to appear, twinkling across the wide desert sky. The rancher and Maya sat together on the porch, watching the darkness settle over the land. The tension had not disappeared, but they had learned to navigate it, to plan, and to remain vigilant. They had faced the unknown and found strength in preparation, strategy, and mutual trust. As they sat in silence, listening to the sounds of the ranch and the distant calls of nocturnal animals, the rancher realized that this chapter of his life had changed him. The quiet solitude he had cherished was no longer the only measure of fulfillment. Connection, trust, and shared purpose had their own power, capable of giving life meaning in unexpected ways. And though the challenges were far from over, he felt ready to face the unknown, ready to protect the land, ready to stand by someone who had become important in ways he had never anticipated. The past had returned, bringing tension and uncertainty, but also courage, partnership, and the quiet promise of resilience. As the desert night deepened and the cool breeze swept across the fields, the rancher and Maya remained vigilant, aware that tomorrow might bring new tests, new surprises, and perhaps even new challenges that would require every ounce of their determination, trust, and courage. But together, they felt prepared to face them, step by careful step, on the land that had always been his, and now, in a new way, hers as well. The next morning, the rancher woke to the soft golden light of the desert sun spilling across the fields. The air was still, and the ranch as always felt alive with quiet movement. The lowing of cattle, the rustle of leaves, and the distant cry of a hawk circling high above. But today, there was a different kind of energy. The rancher could feel it in the air, a sense that something was about to change. Maya was already awake, sitting on the porch with a mug of coffee in her hands. Her eyes were focused on the distant hills, thoughtful and alert. When she saw him step outside, she smiled faintly. But there was tension beneath the surface. "Good morning," she said softly. "Morning," he replied. He poured himself a cup of coffee and took a seat beside her. "We need to be ready. Whoever's been watching may come closer today. We have to stay calm and careful." Maya nodded, setting her mug down. "I'm ready. I trust you." The rancher felt a quiet reassurance in her words. Trust had been their foundation for weeks now, guiding every decision and every step. It was this trust that made him confident they could face whatever was coming. They spent the morning preparing. The rancher checked the gates, making sure all the locks were secure. Maya helped him inspect the animals and the feed supplies, ensuring everything was in order in case they needed to focus on something else later. Every movement was deliberate, every glance measured. They had practiced these routines for weeks, but now the tension made every action feel more urgent. By mid-morning, the rancher decided it was time to put their plan into action. They moved to a high ridge overlooking the ranch, where they could observe the surrounding land without being seen. The wind swept across the ridge, carrying the scent of sage and dry earth. From this vantage point, they could see for miles. Every trail, every hidden path, every movement. "There," Maya whispered, pointing toward a narrow dirt road winding through the hills. A figure appeared, moving slowly but deliberately, stopping occasionally to scan the ranch below. The rancher nodded. "All right. That's the person. Stay calm. Watch everything they do. Don't approach." They crouched low, hidden among rocks and brush, their eyes fixed on the approaching visitor. The figure moved cautiously, clearly aware that the land might be occupied. The rancher could see that this person was observant, careful and deliberate, a watchful presence rather than an immediate threat. As the visitor drew closer, Maya spoke in a low voice. "They might be trying to see if anyone is home. They may not know it's just us. Maybe they think the ranch is empty."
Possibly, the rancher replied.
But we'll find out soon enough. Watch
Their movements. Notice everything, how they look, how they react, where they go. The visitor paused at the edge of the main field, looking around. The rancher and Maya could see the hesitation, the uncertainty, and the quiet determination in their posture. The rancher took a deep breath and decided it was time to make contact, carefully and calmly. "Let's approach slowly," he whispered. "I'll speak first. Stay back until I signal." They moved down the ridge, keeping to the natural cover of rocks and bushes. When they were close enough, the rancher stepped forward, raising a hand in greeting. "Hello?" he called, his voice steady and calm. The figure froze, then slowly turned. It was a young woman, holding a small backpack and looking nervous but not aggressive. I didn't mean to intrude," she said quickly. "I'm sorry. I was just trying to find the right trail."
I didn't know anyone lived here.
The rancher studied her carefully. Her posture was tense, but there was no sign of ill intent. "All right," he said slowly. "This is private property, and you need to be careful. But if you're honest and respectful, there's no problem. Just make sure you don't wander without knowing where you are." The young woman nodded, relief washing over her face.
I understand. Thank you.
"I'll leave right away." Before she could move, Maya stepped forward from her hiding spot. "Wait," she said gently. "It's all right."
She didn't do anything wrong. Let's just make sure everyone is safe.
The rancher looked at Maya, then back at the young woman. "She's right," he said. "You can stay for a moment, just to catch your breath. No harm done."
But you need to respect the ranch and the people here. The young woman nodded again, visibly relaxing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. They brought her inside the ranch house, offering water and a place to rest. The rancher and Maya exchanged quiet glances, acknowledging that while this encounter was not dangerous, it had tested their patience, vigilance, and preparedness. Over the next hour, they spoke with the young visitor, learning that she had been lost while exploring trails and was genuinely trying to find her way. The rancher realized that not every unexpected presence was a threat. Some were accidents, misunderstandings, or moments of confusion. Still, it was a reminder that caution was necessary and that trust had to be balanced with awareness. As the afternoon sun rose higher, Maya spoke quietly to the rancher. It's easy to see why people might think the land is empty. We've been careful. But someone like that, it's a reminder. We need to stay alert, always. The rancher nodded. Yes. And we will. But we've handled this well. The key is staying calm and prepared. That's what will carry us through. The evening brought a calm that felt almost unreal. The young visitor had left, the ranch was quiet again, and the animals moved through the fields as if nothing had happened. Yet the rancher and Maya both felt the undercurrent of vigilance that had carried them through the day. They sat on the porch, watching the sky turn shades of pink and orange, feeling the weight of what had passed and the promise of what was yet to come. Maya spoke softly. You know, for years I've moved from place to place, never feeling truly safe. But here, with you, I feel a sense of security I've never known. The rancher looked at her, understanding in his eyes. Safety isn't guaranteed, he said quietly. But preparation, trust, and understanding can make a difference. And knowing someone is by your side helps even more. They spent the evening talking about life, choices, and the paths that had led them here. They shared stories of hardship, lessons learned, and moments of joy that had been rare but meaningful. The conversation flowed naturally, a mix of reflection and hope, laughter and quiet contemplation. As night fell, the stars appeared, bright and steady in the clear desert sky. The rancher and Maya sat together in comfortable silence, feeling the presence of something larger than themselves, the quiet strength of the land, the enduring rhythm of nature, and the power of trust and companionship. Days passed, and the rancher and Maya continued to strengthen their bond. The land remained a place of vigilance, planning, and preparation, but it also became a space of connection, learning, and subtle joy. They worked together seamlessly, sharing the responsibilities of the ranch and supporting each other in ways both practical and emotional. One morning, as the sun rose and cast long shadows across the fields, Maya turned to the rancher with a thoughtful expression. You've taught me more than I expected, she said. Not just about the land, but about trust, patience, and courage. I feel stronger because of it.
The rancher smiled faintly.
We've both learned. Life is unpredictable. The past can return when we least expect it, but we can face it together. That's what matters. Over the next weeks, the rancher and Maya faced small challenges, unexpected weather, wandering animals, and the occasional curious traveler. Each time they handled the situation calmly, relying on the skills, trust, and connection they had built. Slowly, the tension that had once hung over the ranch began to ease. They were ready for whatever came, not because the world was less uncertain, but because they faced it together. One evening, as the desert sky deepened into shades of indigo and stars appeared in countless numbers, Maya spoke quietly. I never imagined I could find a place like this. A place where I feel safe and a person I can trust completely. You've given me more than I expected. The rancher nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. We've given each other trust, understanding, and courage. That's something worth more than any routine, any solitude. We've built something that can carry us through anything. As the night deepened, they remained on the porch side by side, watching the ranch and the land that had become both their home and their sanctuary. The past had arrived unexpectedly, bringing challenge, tension, and uncertainty. But it had also brought connection, courage, and the quiet satisfaction of facing life together. In the end, The rancher realized that life was not just about solitude, routine, or predictability. It was about trust, understanding, and the willingness to face challenges with someone by your side. And as the stars shone above the quiet desert, he knew that whatever came next, they were ready to face it together, step by step, heart by heart, on the land that had always been his, and now, in a new way, theirs.